welcome you. You recently put Arjun William Patel's new book, Mastering FAQs, a simple and beginner-friendly guide to financial success, on our radar. And yeah, we've taken the plunge into the first 5 chapters.
We sure have.
Consider this our rapid extraction of the key insights, just to help you get up to speed.
Exactly. Think of this as part 1, okay? Part 1 of our 2-part exploration into mastering FAQs. Our aim in this initial deep dive is, to give you a clear overview of these foundational chapters.
Right.
Specifically highlighting how Patel's work can be a really valuable resource for understanding mutual fund investments and, crucially, systematic investment plans, SIPs.
Absolutely. And look, if this conversation sparks your interest, you can find Arjun William Patel's Mastering SIPs available right now on Amazon, Audible, ebook, paperback formats.
Totally option.
We've put the links in the description for you so you can explore it further.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into Chapter 1. What is SIP? Okay, let's unpack the core idea here. Patel starts by establishing that a SIP is, a disciplined method for investing in mutual funds. It's about regularly investing a fixed sum, sort of taking the emotion out of trying to predict market highs and lows. Market timing, basically.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is how the book immediately draws a really relatable picture. It compares a SIP to, a regular auto payment for savings, but, and this is key, with the potential for growth tied to the market.
Okay.
It's also framed as a monthly subscription service for wealth creation. I like that analogy. It resonates with how we think about services today, like your streaming platforms.
That's a great way to put it.
So by its very nature, a SIP almost forces you to buy low, which is, the golden rule of investing, right? Yeah. Almost on autopilot.
Right. And then Patel gets into the actual mechanics. He explains you choose a fixed amount in a regular schedule, say maybe $1,000 monthly. On your chosen date, that amount is automatically deducted and then used to purchase units in your selected mutual fund. Now, the number of units you actually get depends on the net asset value, or NAV, on that specific day.
Which naturally leads to the question, what is NAV? And the book uses this brilliant pizza analogy. I thought this was quite clever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the entire pizza represents the fund's total assets. The delivery fees, those are its liabilities.
Yeah, that's right.
What's left is the pizza's net value. Now, slice that pizza. Those slices are the outstanding units. And the price of just one slice, that's your NAV.
Simple enough.
So the formula is basically total assets minus total liabilities divided by the number of outstanding units.
It's such a clear way to visualize the per unit value of the fund. And to really solidify understanding, the book gives a simple example. A $1,000 investment with an NAV of €10 buys you 100 units.
Makes sense.
Then, if the NAV rises to 12, your investment is suddenly worth 1,200.
Right. The book then walks through the practical steps. Setting your amount and frequency, choosing your fund type, equity, debt, or maybe hybrid.
Which is a mix, right?
Exactly, a mix of both. Then the automatic investment happens, and you start accumulating units. The key takeaway here, and this is crucial, is that you inherently buy more units when the market, and therefore the NAV, is down, and fewer when it's up.
And that's where it gets really interesting. Patel introduces these powerful concepts.
Yeah.
Rupee cost averaging and compounding.
Ah, yes, the classics.
He highlights them as key advantages of SIPs. He also advises, and this depends on your risk tolerance, of course, that you might consider investing more when the market dips.
A tactical move.
And for sustained growth, he suggests aiming to increase your SIP contributions by, say, around 7% to 14% annually, aligning with your financial goal.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really all about establishing a disciplined investment habit. The book then neatly summarizes the core benefits of SIs, really emphasizing their appeal. First, accessibility. Huge. You can start with very small amounts, like as low as 100 to 500 on platforms like ET Money and Grow. It makes it truly beginner-friendly.
Exactly. Then there's rupee cost averaging. The book uses that smart analogy of, sales shopping, you get more when prices are lower. It even includes a numerical example in the book comparing a consistent Euro 10,000 monthly SIP to a, let's say, 50,000 lump sum investment between January and May 2025. It shows how the SIP can potentially acquire more units in a volatile market.
And what's fascinating here is, while rupee cost averaging doesn't automatically guarantee higher returns than a lump sum,
No guarantees.
it provides a systematic way to build wealth gradually, smoothing out those market fluctuations. Then the book underscores the magic of compounding, emphasizing that the longer you invest and reinvest your returns, the greater the snowball effect.
It really builds over time.
It does.
Yeah.
And it even recommends using SIP calculators, like the one from ICICI Bank, just to visualize this long-term growth potential.
And finally, flexibility. Patel points out that SIPs aren't set in stone. You can typically adjust your investment amount. You can pause contributions if things get tight financially.
Life happens.
Exactly. Or even switch between different fund schemes. He mentions HDFC Bank's Step Up SIP feature as a concrete example of this adaptability.
So what does this all boil down to? Chapter 1 provides a really solid foundation. It defines SIPs, explains how they work with mutual funds through NAV, and details their key advantages: affordability, rupee cost averaging, compounding power, and flexibility.
And the advice.
The actionable advice from the book is clear. Start small, be consistent, stay the course, don't panic during market downturns, and review your investments periodically.
Solid start. Okay, moving on to Chapter 2. Top 110 FAQs on SIP investments. Wow, 110 questions. It sounds like a comprehensive answer key for anyone curious about SIPs.
It truly is. By structuring the chapter around frequently asked questions, the book directly addresses those common uncertainties that beginners often grapple with. The sheer volume, 110 FAQs, signals a pretty thorough approach.
Yeah, no kidding. So Patel covers a wide array of fundamental questions. He starts with the basics like, what is an SIP, which is a helpful recap, and how does it work? Yeah, just reiterating that automated process, NAV-based unit allocation. He also reinforces the accessibility point with, can I start with a small amount?
Yeah.
Confirming again that many funds allow investments as low as, say, 500.
And it's crucial to address those initial concerns, right? The FAQs also cover the core benefits again: affordability, rupee cost averaging, compounding, the discipline it fosters, and that built-in flexibility. Questions like, can I modify the amount later and can I skip an installment? Directly address this flexibility. Though it also notes, importantly, that frequent skips could lead to cancellation. So consistency matters.
Good point. And it's good that the book tackles the crucial aspect of risk with, is it safe?
Yeah.
It clarifies, it depends on the type of fund debt generally being less risky than equity, and emphasizes diversifying your investments.
Diversification is key.
And the ability to stop your SIPs is covered with, can I cancel any time? Noting that while you can, your existing investments just remain invested.
Right, you're not forced to sell. The chapter also delves into important considerations like the recommended investment duration with how long should I invest, suggesting at least 5-10 years for equity funds to really ride out the cycles.
Makes sense for equity.
It clarifies the distinction between SIPs and recurring deposits. Is it the same as a recurring deposit? Highlighting the market-linked nature of SIPs versus the fixed returns of RDs. That's a common confusion.
I can see that.
And the possibility of holding multiple SIPs, maybe for different goals or funds with, can I have multiple SIPs? That's confirmed as a diversification strategy too.
Other really practical questions are answered, such as, how is it different from a lump sum? It emphasizes the difference between gradual versus one-time investing and their, varying risk profiles.
Totally different approaches.
The book also makes it crystal clear that SIPs don't guarantee returns. Do they guarantee returns? No, because they are tied to market performance. And also that they aren't limited to just equity funds. Are they only for equity? You've got options in debt, hybrid, even thematic funds.
Exactly. And for those eager to get started, the FAQ, How Do I Start?, provides a basic guide. Select a fund, amount, frequency, then set up an automatic debit. Pretty straightforward these days.
Yeah, online platforms make it easy.
It also addresses the option to pause your SAP. Can I pause? The tax advantages of ELSS SIPs.
The tax-saving ones.
Yeah, equity-linked savings schemes. They offer tax deductions under Section 80C. So do they offer tax benefits? What is an ELSS SIP is covered. And also the various investment channels. Can I invest through my bank? Yes, but the book interestingly points out that independent platforms like Grow and ET Money might offer a wider selection of funds.
Good to know. The FAQs also touch upon how SIPs navigate market fluctuations. How is SIP beneficial during market volatility? That's rupee cost averaging again, right?
Spot on. It's working for you in volatile times. Also, the ability to invest in multiple funds, reset up from multiple funds, their suitability for different time horizons. Are they suitable for short-term goals, maybe debt SIPs? And how returns are actually calculated.
How are they calculated?
Using the XIRR method. It's a way to see your average annual return, factoring in all your investments and withdrawals over time.
Okay, XIR.
The concept of compounding is revisited with how does compounding work? And it even covers practical things like investing for minors. Can I invest for my child?
It sounds like this chapter truly leaves few stones unturned. It addresses things like ideal frequency, monthly is common, online setup, KYC, fund selection, auto debit on platforms like Grow and ET Money, switching funds.
Yep, the influence of NAV, having multiple SIPs in the same fund, suitability for retirees, maybe lower risk options, tracking investments, lock-in periods. Most have none. ELSS has that 3-year lock-in.
Okay.
Adjusting amounts, the impact of inflation, crucial point. Returns need to beat inflation, partial withdrawals, direct SIP plans, which have lower expense ratios, and numerous other detailed questions. And it hammers home that vital point. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results.
Man, it sounds like this chapter serves as an incredibly valuable resource. It preempts almost any question a newcomer might have. Really underscores the accessibility and flexibility of SIPs.
Precisely. And Chapter 3 then builds right on this foundation. It guides you on choosing the right SIP factors. So it transitions from just answering basic questions to actually empowering you to make informed decisions about where to put your money.
Yeah, this feels like the next logical step. This chapter rightly emphasizes that your SIP choices should absolutely align with your individual financial goals, your personal tolerance for risk, and your investment timeline. You know, how long you plan to stay invested. These really are the cornerstones of any sound investment strategy.
And what's particularly insightful here is how the book dissects each of these crucial elements. Regarding risk appetite, it outlines different investor profiles. Conservative, moderate, aggressive, pretty standard stuff, but important.
Yep.
It then clearly links these profiles to suitable mutual fund categories for SIPs. So debt funds for conservative investors, lower risk, lower potential return. Equity funds for aggressive investors, higher risk, higher potential return. And hybrid funds offering that middle ground for those with a moderate approach.
The balanced option.
Exactly. The book even suggests utilizing online risk assessment tools, which you can find on platforms like ET Money or Grow, to help you figure out your own risk profile.
That's incredibly practical advice. When it comes to the investment horizon, Patel connects short-term goals, maybe 1-3 years, with debt SIPs, medium-term, say 3 to 5 years, with hybrid funds, and long-term goals, 5 years or more, primarily with equity.
Makes sense. Time horizon matters hugely for risk.
He stresses the importance of clearly defining your financial objectives with specific timelines and recommends using tools like HDFC Bank's SIP calculator to help visualize potential growth over different investment periods.
And the third vital factor is evaluating fund performance. Now, the book highlights 3 key aspects to look at: historical performance, the expense ratio, and the fund manager's track record.
Okay.
Now, while we know past performance isn't a predictor of the future,
Can't stress that enough.
looking at its consistency over longer periods, like 3, 5, 10 years, can give you some valuable insights. The book also emphasizes the significance of the expense ratio. Lower is better, right?
Yeah.
Because it directly eats into your long-term returns. The book actually illustrates this with an example table showing how even small differences in expense ratios can have a massive effect over time.
All right, those little percentages add up. And the expertise of the fund manager is also critical. Patel advises examining their experience, how long they've actually managed that specific fund, and their track record with other funds they've handled. Consistency in fund management can often be a positive sign.
Definitely.
The book recommends reviewing fund performance on platforms like Grow or AMFI, that's the Association of Mutual Funds in India, and utilizing comparison tools available on ET Money as well.
So, to summarize Chapter 3's actionable takeaways for picking the right SIP, first, define your goals clearly. Second, be honest about your risk tolerance. Third, figure out the right investment time frame for each goal. Fourth, thoroughly evaluate fund performance, historical returns, expense ratio, fund manager experience. Fifth, use those SIP calculators from sources like HDFC Bank, SBI Mutual Fund, wherever. And finally, regularly monitor your investments and be ready to adjust if needed. This chapter really empowers you to move beyond just understanding to actively selecting SIPs that fit your unique situation.
Okay, Chapter 4 then adopts a life stage perspective
Yeah.
titled SIPs for different life stages. This makes perfect sense. Our financial priorities and the level of risk we're comfortable with definitely evolve as we go through life.
Absolutely. The book outlines how these changing circumstances necessitate different SIP strategies. It starts with SIPs for beginners, typically folks in their 20s to early 30s. At this stage, the focus is often on building a foundation, probably with lower risk given potentially limited starting capital and a nice long investment horizon ahead.
Lots of time for compounding.
Exactly. Patel recommends balanced or hybrid funds here. He uses that helpful balanced diet analogy again to explain their mix of equity and debt. He also suggests considering large cap funds. They tend to offer steadier growth with relatively lower risk compared to mid or small cap stocks.
Yeah.
The key advantage highlighted here is the power of starting early to really maximize rupee cost averaging and those long-term compounding effects.
That makes perfect sense. The book then transitions to SIPs for mid-career investors, generally those in their 30s and 40s. In this phase, you often have more stable income, but maybe also increased responsibilities, right? Mortgages, kids.
Life gets more complex.
So that often leads to maybe a moderate risk appetite. The recommendation here shifts a bit more towards equity funds, particularly large and mid-cap funds, to pursue growth more actively. For more experienced investors at this stage, the book also suggests maybe exploring sectoral or thematic funds, higher risk, but potential for higher reward too.
But tread carefully there.
Oh, for sure. The amplified impact of compounding at this career stage is also emphasized. You've got a good base potentially building already.
And finally, Chapter 4 addresses SIPs for retirement planning, focusing on individuals aged 50 and older. Here, the priorities naturally shift towards preserving capital and generating a steady income stream.
Protecting what you've built.
Exactly. The book recommends a gradual shift towards debt funds, which offer lower volatility and more predictable returns. It also suggests considering debt-oriented hybrid funds to provide income with still some potential for growth. The primary goal becomes minimizing the impact of market swings and ensuring a reliable income during retirement.
And for each of these life stages, Patel provides practical advice. For beginners, start small, build that emergency fund first, always reinvest returns.
Crucial first step, the emergency fund.
For mid-career investors, review your portfolio maybe every 3 to 5 years. Cautiously explore equity and sectoral funds, but don't over-diversify, don't spread yourself too thin.
Good point.
And for those planning for retirement, gradually transition towards debt. Consider those hybrid options, and maybe, just maybe, consult a financial advisor. It shows SIPs aren't one-size-fits-all. They need tailoring.
Indeed. And the final chapter in this first part of our deep dive is Chapter 5. Top 51 Myths and Misconceptions about SIPs. This chapter is invaluable for anyone thinking about SIPs because there are just so many misunderstandings floating around out there.
Oh, definitely.
You know, the persistence of these myths often highlights a common fear of market volatility, which, ironically, SIPs are specifically designed to help manage.
It's excellent that the book dedicates a whole chapter just to dispelling these common misunderstandings. Patel tackles a really wide range. For instance, Myth 1. SIPs guarantee high returns. Reality. Nope, no guarantee. It all depends on the market.
Fundamental truth.
Another one. Myth 2. SIPs are only for small investors. Reality. No way. They're suitable for pretty much any investment amount. You just adjust the contribution.
Exactly. It also addresses myths around flexibility, like the mistaken belief that you can't modify SIP contributions once you start. Totally wrong. In reality, you can usually increase, decrease, or even pause your SIP.
Good to know the flexibility there.
And the idea that SIPs only invest in equities. Also incorrect. As we've said, debt and hybrid options are readily available. And timing the market myth 5, only start in bull markets. SIPs actually benefit from the volatility of bear markets through rupee cost averaging. You buy more units when prices are low.
Right, buying the dips automatically. Other myths addressed include the idea that SIPs are only for long-term investing. Reality is they can be used for shorter time frames too, maybe with debt funds. Myth 7. Returns are always lower than lump sum. Not necessarily. They can actually outperform in volatile markets.
Depends on the market conditions.
And Myth 9. You need a DMAT account. Reality. Not mandatory for mutual fund SIPs. The chapter also clarifies, Myth 10, that SIPs do involve costs, those fund management fees or expense ratios. And Myth 11, that they don't work in volatile markets. They're actually designed to work well because of the averaging effect.
And the chapter just keeps going, debunking more misconceptions like Myth 12, SIPs are rigid and inflexible. We've seen that's not true. Myth 13, not ideal for tax saving. Wrong. ELSS SIPs offer tax benefits under ADC. Myth 14, safe investments with no risks. Nope, equity SIPs definitely carry market risk.
Got to understand the risk.
Myth 15, Not suitable for wealth creation. They're specifically designed for long-term wealth creation. It even hits myths like Myth 17. Investments are locked in. Most offer liquidity. ELSS is the exception. Myth 19. SIPs and mutual funds are the same thing. SIP is just a way to invest in a mutual fund. Myth 20. Don't offer liquidity. Open-ended funds do.
It really covers the gamut. Myth 21. Not ideal for conservative investors. Debt-balanced SIPs are options. Myth 22. Require constant monitoring. Periodic reviews are usually fine. Myth 23. Increasing your amount doesn't really matter. Oh, it significantly impacts long-term growth.
The step up is powerful.
Myth 24. Returns are tax-free? Nope. Taxable based on holding period and fund type. Myth 27. They're the best investment option? Well, they're one good option. Depends on your goals and risk. Myth 29. Higher NAV means better returns. NAV is just the price per unit, doesn't predict future returns.
So important. And Myth 37, aren't profitable in a bear market, they benefit from rupee cost averaging them. Myth 39, guarantee fixed returns, absolutely not, returns fluctuate. Myth 40, need a high amount to start, nope, start small and increase. Myth 44, difficult to set up, pretty straightforward now with digital platforms. Myth 47, returns are not taxable, yes they are, after certain limits or periods. Myth 49, stopping leads to penalties generally, no penalties for stopping the SIP itself. And the big one, Myth 51, past performance guarantees future returns, never ever true.
It's a truly comprehensive myth-busting chapter, so important in investing, where misinformation can just, spread like wildfire. And Patel follows this up with key actionable takeaways again. Assess your risk, stay invested long-term, monitor periodically, leverage step-up SAPs, diversify, understand taxes, adapt to financial changes, recognize the benefits in volatile markets, set realistic goals, and choose based on your goals and risk.
So yeah, to bring this first part of our deep dive into Arjun William Patel's Mastering SIPs to a close, we've covered quite a bit of foundational knowledge, haven't we?
We definitely have.
We started by grasping the fundamental concept of SIPs in Chapter 1. Then we addressed that huge list of common questions in Chapter 2. Chapter 3 gave us guidance on the crucial factors for choosing the right SIPs. Chapter 4 explored how strategies can be tailored to different life stages. And finally, Chapter 5 helped us debunk some of those really widespread myths and misconceptions.
Exactly. It's pretty evident from just these initial chapters that Patel has really aimed to create an accessible, practical guide for anyone looking to understand mutual fund investments and use SIPs as a strategic tool for reaching their financial goals.
Yeah.
Seems like a very helpful resource.
And just a final reminder, Arjun William Patel's Mastering SIPs, his latest book, is readily available now on Amazon. Audible, ebook, paperback formats are all there. We've put the links in the description below for you so you can explore it further at your own pace.
So, reflecting on these fundamental principles we've discussed from these first 5 chapters, maybe think about this. What specific financial objective could you start considering working towards by initiating SIP today? Or perhaps, now that you have a clearer understanding of these foundational concepts, what are some of the questions about SIP investing that still linger in your mind?
Food for thought.
We trust that this initial deep dive has given you a solid grounding in the basics of SIOPs, as presented in Patel's book. Do join us next time as we delve into the subsequent chapters of Mastering SIPs in Part 2 of our exploration.